What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you our October update for the Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access. So, rather than cover like every time they do a hotfix, because the point of Early Access is to iterate on bugs and things like that, I figured the easiest thing to do would try to be to do rather a monthly update as opposed to something constantly. So, I'm going to gather up all of the hotfixes and patches and things in a given month and let you guys know about it. I actually meant for this to be up yesterday, but I actually kind of messed up a power supply for my mic, so it had to wait a little bit. So I'm not going to cover like every single fix that they do, as this video would be incredibly long, but obviously October being the release month, we have a decent amount to talk about. So of course Baldur's Gate 3 released in early access earlier at the start of the month, and then we saw several hotfixes pretty quickly, hotfix 1, 2, and 3, which were named, but I mean, who cares about that? So the first hotfix was all fixes for things like crashes during actions, moving the camera, character creation, some dialogues. There were some problems with like summons and things being like actually treated as a companion, which was an interesting one. And then hotfix 2 was a lot of multiplayer fixes for like talking to people and things like that. Hotfix 3 included a fix for what was probably my favorite bug, and that was stealing from vendors by just equipping the items out of the trade menu. So when you had the trade menu up before Hotfix 3, it was possible to open up your regular inventory and then just like equip the items from the vendor's inventory into yours. But they fixed that with Hotfix 3, which was a good one. And then after that, they had Patch 1. So Patch 1, I believe, was the one that actually had to be pulled for a brief while, because when they implemented it, it actually messed up a thing with the tieflings, like level 4 warlocks or something like that. It was super specific, but it was like a certain race and a warlock cantrip or something. So they actually had to pull it, and then it was fixed and then re-implemented or whatever. So the improvements from Patch 1 were a lot of polish and bug fixes to several of the in-game cinematics. A lot of them were like rough around the edges, so they just kind of smoothed them out, made them look a little better, as well as added a couple where they were missing. They changed some text to make more sense, which is more of like a localization thing in my opinion, but just kind of worked on the text in certain areas. They altered certain dialogues for different NPCs. For instance, there were a couple instances that I know of where a companion would mention another companion that you hadn't actually like had in your party yet, so they fixed certain things like that. And they also actually added some combat tutorial messages to help better explain the basics, which is a step in the right direction from my Things to Improve video. If you're interested in watching that, maybe I'll link it down below if I remember to do it. And then with Patch 1, we got a whole host of bugs that you should see on screen, of course. There was just a ton of them, so I'm not going to read them all off. And that brings us to Patch 2. Patch 2 brought us improvements to sound, more polishing for in-game cinematics, fixing some things with some invisible enemies, and a whole host of bug fixes for just various things for multiplayer and a lot of dialogue fixes, stuff like that. So just a ton of fixes across the board. Again, this should be up on the screen for you to see. And then Hotfix 4 included some Windows 7 startup issues for people who are still using Windows 7, some problems with DX11, and the Revivify scrolls causing your system to crash. So that's all the actual updates they put out. Again, you can kind of pause the video and read them on screen. I know I didn't cover them in any particular depth. In addition to this, Larian also released some information about statistics, and basically from those statistics, you can figure out that everyone chose the most boring choices possible. Everyone liked to romance Gale. Also, that the character creation options that were picked the most were in fact the most boring, because it was like the basic guy. They also went in depth, which I thought was cool, about some studio issues they had during the actual release of the game, and that was like one of their studio's basements flooded. One of them, I think the Quebec studio lost, I think it was Quebec that it was based out of. They lost like Wi-Fi or whatever and just had zero internet, so they had to like offload it to a different studio to like upload some of the stuff or whatever. So they had all sorts of trouble. I'll try to link some of these updates to you guys below, but the best source of this information is actually just their Twitter accounts in Baldur's Gate 3, as well as Larian Studios' Twitter account. They actually update a lot of this stuff on there. They're very active on Twitter if you don't actually have the early access and thus aren't necessarily getting the news from like Steam or something. Follow their Twitter. They give a lot of those great updates. I'm kind of hoping this will be like a fun thing to look back on and see the iterative process kind of commemorated in these videos, so to speak, as early access rolls on. So there you go, guys. There's the October update for Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas about what you'd like to see in these videos, like by all means, let me know in the comments. I'm pretty open to it. But that said, thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.